So I'm going to share with you a little bit about my story, how I came to be doing somatic emotional work, and also just, how I got to be the way that I am. What created the experience for me of really needing to do emotional work. And unfortunately, that's how I think a lot of people have to come to emotional work is after a long period of suffering. It's not been different for me. And I found many pieces along the way, and this is one of them, but it's a vital and important piece. It's growing in its importance as well. So I grew up into a family where the only person who seemed to express anything really emotional in my family was my mother. She expressed anger, a lot of anger. My mom had suffered a lot of trauma in her life, and I'll just share the trigger warning is that my mom does die in this story. But basically, what happens is she's the only one expressing anger around my family of origin, and it's so dominating and it's so overpowering. I look at the others, my sister, my father, my brother, and I think, they're just getting dominated by her. I'm not going to let that happen. So I'm this like raging wild 2-year old, completely, dominant and energized and powered and fighting my mom all the time and really getting charged up. Mean. I was a mean old little boy. And it was just trying to find some sense of power in a space where everyone was being dominated into feeling powerless. So did I feel safe feeling vulnerable emotions, sadness, hurt? Did I feel okay to cry? The the direct learning from my mother was boys do not cry. The very statement. I mean, we've all heard this, but it's sort of amazing when someone actually says it. Boys don't cry, Benny. So I learned that lesson. I stopped crying. I toughened up. I became very angry and dominant in a lot of my relationships, powerful, but really the kind of power that I had was fear masquerading as power, projected sense of weakness, um, trying to control my energy and my anger, trying to control everyone else. And fast forward until I'm 9, my mother dies. And what happens for me in that is absolute shock. I mean, like I'm not able to believe that she's died. It doesn't make sense to me. It's out of the realm of possibility for me, actually. And when I feel that shock, and as a part of understanding the experience of my mother dying, I take it to believe, I take on the belief that I am the cause and I am the reason that she's died. Now, this is very, very common. There's books written about how children who lose a parent will blame themselves. So this is nothing new. This is a apparently very age-old and perhaps there's a great wisdom actually in this particular common mechanism to blame oneself for something bad that happens to you. So I experienced that, and what was I doing wrong that might have made it my fault? You look for specifics. What can I do different so that this doesn't happen again? Or maybe, and I'm bargaining here, I'll get her back. God will give mom back. I'm only 9 years old, and I believe anything is possible. It's my anger. I've been so mean. I shouldn't have done that. So I learned to shut down my anger then. Now, if you've been following the story, you know I was also already shutting down my vulnerability and sadness. So I can't get sad, right? I don't want to disappoint mom in heaven. I can't cry now. I can't be hurt. I can't express that I'm hurt. And I can't get angry anymore. I have to shut down my anger. So lots of repression, very little access to feeling anything. But God is good. And actually, when I was 12, I started to do theater. And acting gave me a way to express myself. It gave me a way to, like a sanctioned place where I could get angry and I could get sad. These are places where you can do these things, right? And now my capacity to actually feel my anger at this point, or my capacity to feel my sadness was severely limited because I had repressed it, right? So I didn't really have a lot of access as an actor to a lot of emotion, but I sure really had a lot of emotion in me and I really wanted a space to express. So I go and I get on stage and I scream and I get angry and I cry, whatever comes up. But I was dying for those tears. They were the longest and most repressed part of me. And I was longing for that as an actor. And I went deep into it. I found it was such a good place for me. I felt very safe as an actor. I felt like I was very good at it. I got a lot of accolades and I got into a good school and I studied acting. I went into it for 10 years and I learned many skills along the way. And I did have breakthroughs and emotional breakthroughs and I had a lot of tears at times and powerful anger and got to have a sanctioned place to do that. But of course, in my relationships, nothing really changed. I wasn't really able to be vulnerable with people. I didn't really want anyone to get to know me because I was stuffing down a bunch of parts of myself. That takes a lot of energy in like regular relationship. It seems kind of backwards, but as an actor, it was the only safe place that I had for emotion at that time. And around the age of 19, I started to learn to meditate. As I learned to practice meditation, I thought, and I learned, I mean, this is probably the most basic bypass that you'll recognize this is that if a, and this is from The Power of Now, which is an amazing book, life-changing book, highly recommend it to anyone. If I am completely present, I won't have to feel anything bad. I won't have any negative emotions. So finally, the answer, I don't have to feel anything if I'm present. So I dove into that world and did a lot of meditation. I did a lot of meditation retreats. I took it very seriously and with a great deal of passion and gusto. So natural for me. I loved it. And I had a very intense capacity for focus. I'm an Aries. I was charging right in there and just meditating my butt off. Did that through the first half of my 20s until I met a non-dual teacher. And then I started focusing on just recognizing presence as the self. Presence is everything, presence is everywhere. I am that. I'm everything and I'm everywhere. I can sense myself in everything. And that was very real for me. I had a sense of subtlety and capacity through all the meditation practice that I'd done that I can sense myself in things. I know that I'm not just limited to this body mind. And if I'm not limited to the body mind and the teaching is stay in the space of being. Boy, you've never met anyone as spaced out as me. Wasn't feeling anything. I was spaced out. I was bypassing. I when I was a meditator, I was practicing Vipassana, so I was learning to skillfully feel sensations. But the way that I dove into it so intensely, I was just full of numbness and density because I was so tense about the practice. Right? I wasn't a skillful meditator. I was a very, very serious one, though. I was very devoted, but I wasn't skillful. So I was learning this in meditation. I was learning this from my non-dual teacher. Space out, be the space, don't feel your body, or go all the way in and just feel the shit out of it. These are not skillful ways of dealing with repressed emotion. They are very supportive to continuing your repression. If you recognize yourself, like just laugh, because of course I was learning things through all of this, and it was a desire to actually get closer to myself. And I think almost innate kind of gravity toward like the love of being, of presence, of really wanting a deep connection with life. And what happens? Same old story with every guru. He's sleeping with students and he's lying about it, breaks up the Sangha, the community, spiritual community around that teacher, the non-dual teacher. It dissolves. And I have zero skills and capacity to be with my own emotions about this. It got pretty dark, guys. I didn't have any resources. I had lost my community. Of course, I had friends and people in that community, but I really felt like I had lost my family. It was, in a way, a repeat of the time my mother died. My family wasn't really emotionally available or didn't have capacity to be like, Ben, come tell me, are you sad? Do you want to cry? Let's cry together. Let's be sad. This sucks. There was no one to do that for me in my family of origin. In this non-dual spaced out family, there actually was a lot of support for that, but my conditioning wouldn't allow me to partake in it, wouldn't allow me to really be supported. And really, I just didn't have enough tools and skills and capacity. I was going to suffer that loss of that community very deeply, and I did. I went through a period of suicidality. I was powerfully addicted to marijuana and to screens and to avoiding life and just dissociating and spacing out, watching things. And at a certain point, I hit a bottom. I was suicidal. I didn't want to be here. I didn't feel good. I felt miserable. So, what do I do now? How do I stay with this stuff that I just can't be with? How do I learn to feel again so that this stuff that I know is just, it's here. I gotta feel it. I've gotta process it. I've gotta let it go. How do I do it? Didn't have the tools, but I did have a lot of skills, actually. I learned to feel and be sensitive in Vipassana meditation. I had learned to access a sense of witnessing capacity to just watch myself in the non-dual practice. I had actually expressed a lot as an actor, and I had access actually to full-bodied movements of energy. My energy work was there, but the skills weren't. So fast forward, and I studied the Killaby inquiries with Scott Killaby, um, and I learned how to go by layers, how to feel my resistance. Like, say I'm sad one day, I'm sad. I don't want to feel that. That resistance, if I try to go in and just feel the sadness anyway, you think this resistance is just going to disappear? No, like I learned the skill of notice that resistance. What about just processing that resistance? Forget about sadness. Just be angry that you have to be sad. Push away your sadness. You want to resist it? Don't resist your resistance. Welcome it. So, one thing at a time, welcome your resistance to sadness. I welcome it. I started to meet it. I realized, oh, I'm not actually sad. I'm terrified of getting lost in sadness because my depression was so scary for me. Oh, meet the fear, process and get intimate with just being afraid to feel sad. What is that like? Get more and more close to the deeper feelings. I start to process, can I express my sadness to anyone? Can I tell anyone I'm sad? No, I can't. I don't want to. What does it mean about me if I do that? Oh, I'm weak or I'm a loser. I'm pathetic. I'm manipulative. Lots of beliefs come up. Okay, what if I just meet these beliefs? I don't even try to express my sadness yet. Started to meet it. Started to process these layers and see them in the skill of inquiry. I learned I can say I'm sad, feel hurt. What about my anger? It's been repressed too. Processing by the layers. Can I feel this? No, I don't want to. It's scary. Being angry means that I'm dangerous, that I'll do something mean, I'll say something mean, I'll push people away. I don't want to be that person. Shut it down, push it away. I get closer to my anger and I say, I'm just scared to feel this. Just meeting fear. I just meet fear to skill to recognize the layers. I look at my resistance to expressing my anger, still there, still have a lot of that. What's going to happen if I express my anger? Oh, gonna, it's gonna be bad. It's gonna push everyone away. I'll be mean. Let's just meet that. I can let my anger go. I can let my sadness go. I can let this fear go. I can stop processing. I can just enjoy myself. No, I can't. Okay, meet that resistance. Layer by layer, skillful meeting and connection has become a bigger and bigger part of my path. And I'll finish this by sharing where I'm at now. And I've been working with another teacher who has really taught me to slow down and hold a lot of space. Not to space out, as I had been doing with my previous teacher, but to just be present, feel the emotional body as a field of energy, and really receive it in its totality. And this is where skill and intuition and an innate, I would say, innate capacity in every single body mind exists to just get close to things, to intuitively unfold these deeper contracted energies in our bodies, the anger, that sadness, that there's a wisdom that is natural. You don't have to study for it, but you do need the skill and capacity to remain. And it is itself a skill. It's very easy to integrate because it is its own reward. You feel present, you meet emotions, and they skillfully dissolve in presence. They come home, actually. One way of looking at all of this is that I had all these pushed away parts of myself, all this anger and all this sadness, all this stuff that I had to repress, that I had to push away. I had so much pain. All of that was pushed away is what I'm coming back for now. The little boy who had to shut down his sadness and his anger. I'm home. I'm here for that. I'm here for that little boy. And it's a process. I'm not done with my emotional work. I get triggered, I get lost in my emotion, or I repress it, I avoid it, I go onto screens. Sometimes I smoke pot. I avoid things. It happens. But my capacity and my skill is growing and developing all the time. My ability to become more intimate in relationship is really completely different than it was when I was growing up, when I was a teenager, through my entire 20s, the entire time I was in that Sangha, spiritual community, and it's still growing. And the capacity to feel love, the capacity to feel openness, connectedness, all of that is a skill and it grows. So while you may not share uh, much resonance with my story, it may not be your story. I want to encourage you that if you struggle with feeling emotion, if you struggle with this, that there's tools and there's skill. There's the development of infinite patience, right? Because it maybe just takes our whole lives. But suffering doesn't have to take up our whole life. Definitely not. I know that for sure. Old trauma that is stuck in us, that has wounded us, doesn't have to stay inside of us, can be met. It can be met and it can be supported. It can actually integrate into what it was meant for. Now, I consider all the repression that I went through to have been a powerful impetus for me towards love, really, towards a closeness with myself, towards a closeness with God, a spirituality, which I will just say is like really just my connection, really, to myself. So yeah, I encourage anyone to recognize that wherever you are in your story, wherever you are in your life, whatever gifts and of conditioning and gifts of skill and learning you may have had in your life for how to be with things, pay tribute to what you've learned because you already have skill. You already do. Yeah. So that's a little of my story here. If you like this video, press like, subscribe to my channel, get to know me. I'd like to get to know you.